the chase down the ice. And Ron Hextall is going to be right in there. Hextall going at the puck back.
And he runs into Chevrier and he's pounding away. Chevrier. And we have a war at the end of the game. And Chevrier is just getting murdered by Philadelphia's Hextall.
Would be right as Peters heads off right now. Hextall stops it. Flips
look out.
Down the ice. Will
It's got
it
a
make
chance. It's got a chance.
it? He's got it!
Yes, sir.
Intense, unhinged, and very talented. He revolutionized puck handling for goaltenders while simultaneously striking fear into the hearts of his opponents with his aggressive stick play. On the ice, he was a true character and truly unpredictable, and he was known for his willingness to defend his teammates fiercely. Despite his remarkable skill set, this goalie's NHL journey wasn't a smooth one. It took until his debut season for him to find his stride. But once he did, he became a force to be reckoned with, giving fans one of the most exciting and impressive rookie seasons in hockey history. And that's right, boys, today we're going to delve into the story of the madman of the NHL, Ron Hextall, tracing his wild journey from junior hockey to NHL stardom. Hextall not only set a standard for goaltending excellence in the 80s, but he also left a mark with his unpredictable nature. While we won't delve into his later career as a GM as much, one thing remains clear. Hextall's legacy is one of both brilliance and unpredictability, a rare combination that defined his career and made him a beloved figure in Philadelphia. So join me as we explore the thrilling and unpredictable life and career of Ron Hextall. Ron Hextall, born on May 3, 1964 in Brandon, Manitoba, is the youngest of Brian and Faye Hextall's 3 children. Ron comes from a family deeply rooted in NHL history, as his grandfather Brian Hextall was a renowned Hall of Famer who spent 11 seasons with the New York Rangers before being inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame in 1969. Ronnie's father, Brian Hextall Jr., had a successful 10-year NHL career, notably with the Pittsburgh Penguins. Additionally, his uncle Dennis Hextall played 14 seasons in the NHL, primarily with the North Stars and the Red Wings. With such a lineage, it's no surprise that hockey ran in Ron Hextall's blood. His childhood was mostly shaped by watching his father and uncle play, and also at the same time endured pain at the hands of the Philadelphia Flyers, whose aggressive style in the 1970s earned them the nickname the Broad Street Bullies. When reflecting on this time, Ronnie remembers how dirty the Flyers were and admitted having a strong dislike for them, ironically enough. And due to his father's NHL career, Hextall's education was quite unstable. Each year school would start, he would start in Brandon, but once hockey season would begin in October, he would have to move to a school closer to where his father was playing at the time. Despite always being on the move, he managed to achieve B and C grades, often putting in the minimum effort, because he was just focused on hockey. His passion for hockey and the position of goaltending began at such a young age, even during school hours when he would forego classwork to sketch his favorite goaltenders, Tony Esposito and Jimmy Rutherford. And this early fascination with goaltending would eventually blossom into a deep love for the position. So much that Hextall would actually grow to enjoy the constant moving around, later commenting that he got to hang around NHL rinks as a kid. What more could he have asked for? While both his father, Brian Hextall Jr., and grandfather played as forwards, his father supported his decision to play in goal. However, his father would also encourage him to try other positions just to improve his skating, believing he would have made for a good defenseman. Ron's mother, on the other hand, recalled his passion for hockey being so strong that it surpassed that of his father's teammates, and she was so convinced it was going to propel him to achieve his dream of becoming an NHL goaltender. Everybody around Ron could tell from such a young age that this is what he wanted his everyday life to be. When hockey wasn't going on during the season, each summer he would try and improve, attending hockey schools that were ran by his father, in whatever city his father just happened to be playing in at the time. And well, the quality of the hockey programs in Pittsburgh and Atlanta were below par, causing him to lag behind many of his peers during his teenage years. And surprisingly, when interviewed about his minor hockey days, Ron described himself as not what you would call real polished. Ron knew a lot of work still had to be done. Ron Hextall would begin his junior hockey career in 1980 with the Melville Millionaires in the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League. During the 1981 season, Hextall played in 37 games, but his performance was just okay, with a 6.57 goals against average. However, one positive moment that would foreshadow his future success occurred against the Prince Albert Raiders. Hextall's numbers weren't the greatest, sure, but the Millionaires were terrible. In that game against Prince Albert, Hextall faced 105 shots, stopping 86 of them in a 19-2 defeat. One reporter observed that without Hextall, the Raiders might have even scored 30 or 40 goals. Hextall's teammates would praise his dedication, highlighting how he never gave up and stayed in the game until the final horn. For the following 1982 season, Hextall returned to his hometown of Brandon and joined the Brandon Wheat Kings in the Western Hockey League. He appeared in 30 regular season games for the Wheat Kings and achieved a goals against average of 5.71. Although the team made it into the playoffs, they were swept in the first round by the Regina Pats. Hextall participated in 3 playoff games but only completed 2, ending with a brutal goals against average of 9.32. However, again, critics were viewing the team Hextall was on as very weak, and Hextall would have to battle hard in each game. Despite those numbers raising a few eyebrows, Flyers scout Gary Melnick at the time understood why many teams had doubts about Hextall, but still saw some interest. Melnick said there were teams who thought Hextall was loony, and hey, they were probably right. But Melnick and the Flyers saw past this. They were able to see Hextall's qualities and believed he could fit in well with the team, leading to Hextall being selected by the Flyers in the 6th round of the 1982 NHL Draft, 119th overall. After being drafted, it was obvious Ron Hextall still needed time to develop, so he would stay in Brandon for 2 more seasons. In the 1983 season, he played in 44 games and posted a goals against average of 5.77, as the Wheat Kings did not qualify for the playoffs. The following season was his most successful in the WHL, when he posted a goals against average of 4.27 in 46 regular season games. On top of all of that, he had 29 wins, which were more than his total from the previous 2 seasons combined. He would also appear in 10 of 12 playoff games for the Wheat Kings, securing 5 wins and 5 losses, posting up a goals against average of 3.75. And amazingly, during the 1984 season as well, Hextall set a record for most penalty minutes accumulated by a goaltender with 117 assists during the regular season. Coming off of his solid postseason run, in the fall of 1984, Hextall arrived at the Flyers training camp with high hopes of NHL play. However, the Flyers had other plans, and they opted to send him to their IHL farm team, the Kalamazoo Wings. Despite Ron's initial disappointment, this move marked his professional hockey debut, a big step up from the WHL. Hextall played in 19 games for Kalamazoo during the 1985 season. He secured 6 wins and posted a goals against average of 4.35, and midway through the season, he was transferred to the Flyers' other farm team, the Hershey Bears of the American Hockey League, where he would play in 11 games, winning 4, posting a goals against average of 3.68. During the 1986 season, Hextall remained with the Hershey Bears, appearing in 53 games. He achieved 30 wins and the lowest goals against average of his career up to that point, posting a 3.41 goals against. Also in the conference finals that year against the St. Catharines Saints, Hextall lived up to his aggressive reputation by engaging in a bench-clearing brawl, fighting 3 different opponents in one game. Led by Hextall, the Hershey Bears would make it all the way to the Calder Cup finals, where they would face the Adirondack Red Wings, who would end up winning the Calder Cup in 6 games. Despite the loss, Hextall was phenomenal throughout the playoffs. In 13 games, he won 5 and posted a goals against average of 3.23, and he was honored with the Dudley Red Garrett Memorial Award, recognizing him as the AHL's most outstanding rookie. Reflecting on his time in the AHL, Hextall acknowledged that despite his initial disappointment of not immediately making the Flyers, the 2 years that he spent in the AHL led him to a point where he was sure he could be a #1 goalie at the NHL level. And Ronnie Hextall was about to revolutionize goaltending in the NHL with his unique style, actively supporting his defense by frequently leaving the net to play the puck. Hextall differed from other goalies of his time who typically limited themselves to simple plays behind the net or short passes. Instead of shying away, Hextall would join the play and use his stick like a defenseman, initiating initiating counterattacks, lifting the puck, or bouncing it off the glass. This made traditional dump and chase strategies ineffective against him, as he would often be the first to the puck, clearing it to the waiting player in the neutral zone. However, many people around this time doubted if Hextall's style would ever survive in the NHL. Many people also doubted his NHL future due to the occasional soft goals. But Hextall persisted with his unique approach. Although there were some detractors, there were also many people who loved the way Hextall played. Marty Brodeur admired Hextall's puck handling abilities, stating that, although he was a little rough for my liking, it was entertaining. The playing of the puck was a big thing. However, not all legends felt this way. Rogie Vachon, who was the general manager for the Los Angeles Kings during Hextall's early career, praised his goaltending, but criticized his aggressive conduct, stating he can play, but he doesn't need that shit. This sentiment, as you'll notice, was echoed by many, leading to Hextall being both revered and reviled throughout the league. Former NHL goalie John Davidson even noted that Hextall thrived on being a villain, describing him as a great character who drew crowds eager to boo him when he played away games. Despite it looking like Hextall was starting to find his game, he was still considered a long shot to make the Flyers when training camp arrived. However, Hextall was turning heads in the preseason. His impressive play in 4 exhibition games were enough to convince head coach Mike Keenan to promote him to the NHL. Keenan also announced that Ron Hextall was going to start the Flyers' home opener for the 1987 season against the Edmonton Oilers. Although Hextall allowed a goal on the very first shot he faced in the NHL, he wouldn't let another one get past him that game, and he led the Flyers to a 2-1 victory on opening night. Throughout his first season, the young Hextall would maintain that aggressive style for which he was known. Early on, he would swing his stick at guys like Brad Smith or Troy Murray. Despite these incidents, Hextall recalled these as just being minor occurrences. "I used to be worse. I've learned to control my temper." Well, just 2 months after making this statement, Ronnie would find himself in a fight with New Jersey goalie Alan Chevrier.
As Hextall comes out, he threw both gloves down, and boom, he runs into Chevrier, and he's pounding away Chevrier. And we have a war at the end of the game, and Chevrier is just getting murdered by Philadelphia's Hextall. The other goaltender, Billington, couldn't get in there.
Ron Hextall had a remarkable debut season in the NHL, to put things lightly. Despite being in his first year in the league, he led the NHL in games played with 66, achieved 37 wins, which was also most in the NHL, and boasted a .902 save percentage, also ranking first in the league at the time. In the postseason, Hextall continued his impressive performance, recording 15 wins, 11 losses, and a 2.76 goals against average, and a .908 save percentage and 2 shutouts in 26 games. He led the Flyers to within 1 win of the Stanley Cup as a rookie, notably achieving a save percentage above .900 as a goalie in the high-scoring 1980s was a significant accomplishment, and he posted a goals against average below 3 in the playoffs. Despite not winning the Stanley Cup, Hextall's performance was so incredible he received the Conn Smythe Trophy as MVP of the playoffs. He was also awarded the Vezina Trophy as the league's top goaltender. However, Ron didn't win the Rookie of the Year, narrowly losing to Luc Robitaille in one of the biggest Calder robberies of all time. He also finished 9th in Hart Trophy voting. Hextall's debut season showcased his immense talent and potential, transitioning from playing in the AHL to becoming a playoff MVP and Vezina Trophy winner in just 1 year. And on top of seeing Ron Hextall, the phenomenal rookie goaltender, the fans also got to see Ron Hextall, the unhinged madman. During the 4th game of the finals, Hextall received 2 penalties. First, a 10-minute misconduct penalty for expressing his displeasure on the Oilers' 4th goal, and later he would be assessed a 5-minute major for slashing Kent Nielsen. Hextall felt remorse for this incident, but only for hitting the wrong guy, telling the media after the game, "If somebody slaps you in the face, you're gonna have to slap him back. It's not like he gave me a touch to jar the puck. What's he going to do next, break my arm? I'm sorry it was Nielsen and not Anderson, but at the time I reacted, and it was the right thing to do in my head." And showing he was just as amazing of a goaltender as he was crazy, Hextall's performance in the following game tied the series and forced a decisive Game 7. And after the game, Flyers teammates surrounded Hextall in celebration, and Oilers player Kevin Lowe praised Hextall, saying that he held them in it. And between games 6 and 7, Oilers forward Wayne Gretzky described Hextall as probably the best goaltender I've ever played against in the NHL, showing that Hextall was both one of the best goalies in the world and maybe one of the most insane hockey players on the planet. During that offseason, Ron Hextall would receive an 8-game suspension to start the 1988 season for his slash on Nielsen. Brian O'Neill, speaking on behalf of the NHL, would state that there is no justification for any player to swing his stick in retaliation, and this is especially in the case of a goaltender, whose stick, because of its weight, can seriously injure someone. The Philadelphia Flyers faced a challenging start to the 1988 season, with coach Mike Keenan attributing part of their struggles to Hextall's suspension. Hextall made his return to the lineup against the New York Rangers, showcasing a stellar performance with over 40 saves in a 2-2 tie. But it wasn't until about a month later, on December 8th, 1987, where Ron Hextall would make history and immortalize himself in NHL history. His exceptional puck handling and shooting skills propelled him to a new level, becoming the first NHL goaltender to shoot and score a goal. He achieved this remarkable feat during a game against the Boston Bruins. With the Flyers ahead 4-2, the Bruins removed their goalie for an extra attacker. Hextall capitalized on the opportunity when the puck was dumped into the Flyers zone, allowing him to pick up the puck uncontested. His famous shot would soar into the air, bouncing and rolling, eventually landing in the back of the net. Following the game, he expressed confidence, stating, "I knew I could do it. It was only a matter of when, not if." Despite the suspension early in the season and a shoulder injury later on that caused Hextall to miss 5 games, he managed to play in 62 games for the Flyers. He achieved 30 wins with a goals against average of 3.50, slightly higher than his rookie year. However, Hextall struggled in the playoffs this time, even being replaced in consecutive games against the Washington Capitals after conceding 4 goals in each game. In the final 2 games of that series, which the Washington Capitals won 4-3, Hextall allowed an additional 12 goals, ending the playoffs with a goals against average of 4.75. In each of his first 2 seasons, Hextall amassed 104 penalty minutes during the regular season, a record for goalies at the time. In the 1989 season, he would surpass his own record, accumulating 113 penalty minutes, the highest by any goaltender in an NHL season. More impressively, Hextall finished the 1989 season with 30 wins, marking the 3rd consecutive season in which he achieved this feat, becoming the first goalie to do so in each of his first 3 seasons in the NHL. However, once the playoffs rolled around, Hextall's performances remained inconsistent. Despite helping the Flyers knock off the Capitals in the first round and becoming the first goalie to ever score a goal in the playoffs while scoring his 2nd career goal, Hextall would ultimately struggle in the Patrick's Division final against the Penguins. The struggles began early in the series when Hextall was pulled from the net and then reinstated twice during a 10-7 defeat for the Flyers in Game 5. Facing 17 shots, Hextall allowed 9 goals against. Hextall would also lose his cool during this game, assaulting an official and then chasing Rob Brown after scoring a goal. Well, despite this, after the game, Ron responded by saying, "Hey, if I was as out of control as people say I am, I wouldn't be in the National Hockey League," claiming that he was strong mentally. Although the Flyers would rally back and defeat the Penguins in 7 games, Ron Hextall was unable to play in the first 3 games of the following series against the Montreal Canadiens. Hextall was unable to play due to a first-degree sprain of the MCL in his right knee, during which the Canadiens would take a 2-1 lead. He returned for the 4th game, but he couldn't prevent his team from losing 3-0. The Flyers would win the following game to extend the series to 6 games, but they would lose the next game 4-2 and were eliminated. But that's not what people remember about this series. What people remember most about this series is the final minutes of Game 6. Pissed off due to the fact that his team was about to be eliminated, Ron Hextall displayed a violent outburst, skating out of his crease to attack Chris Chelios.
Offside against the Canadians, and now Hextall goes barreling out at one of the Canadians, hitting high and hard.
He wanted Chris Chelios as soon as Chelios came across the blue line.
Hextall claimed that this attack was in retaliation for Chelios' vicious hit on his teammate Brian Propp in Game 1, when Chelios delivered a flying elbow to Propp's head, rendering him unconscious. Hextall received a 12-game suspension for his actions at the beginning of the following 1990 season. Following the announcement of his suspension, Hextall expressed his disappointment and clarified that his intention was to fight with Chelios, rather than to just sucker him. Before the start of the 1990 season, Ron Hextall grew dissatisfied with his current 8-year, $4 million contract, which was only paying him roughly $300,000 annually. He enlisted the help of agent Ryan Winter, known for his confrontational approach, to renegotiate his deal. However, the Flyers refused to negotiate with Winter. In a tearful press conference, Ron Hextall declared his contract void and announced his decision to boycott the team's training camp. After a 42-day hiatus, during which negotiations took place behind closed doors, Hextall rejoined the team for practice on October 20th. During his first game back with the team, Hextall suffered a slight groin pull, and in the following game he suffered an injury to his left hamstring. Throughout the season, Hextall played in just 9 games, once for the Hershey Bears in the AHL and 8 for the Flyers, registering a goals against average of 4.15. The worst of his NHL career by far. Groin injuries continued to hamper Hextall over the next 2 seasons, with 2 strains to his left groin muscle occurring in the 1991 season alone. In the 1991 season, Hextall played in only 36 NHL games, less than half of the Flyers' total that season, recording just 13 wins with a goals against average of 3.13. Due to Hextall missing so much time, the Flyers would miss the playoffs for the second consecutive year. Well, early in the following year, Hextall would receive his 3rd significant suspension. He was about to miss even more time, missing 6 games for slashing Detroit forward Jim Cummins during a preseason game. It seemed like Hextall was slowing down his own momentum. Due to the suspension, injuries, and lack of form, Hextall appeared in just 45 games for the Flyers, recording 16 wins and achieving the lowest win percentage of his career at 35.56%. And to the surprise of many, after just 5 years removed from making it to the Stanley Cup Finals and having his magical rookie season, during the 1992 offseason, Ron Hextall was a part of one of the biggest trades in NHL history, the trade that brought Eric Lindros to the Philadelphia Flyers. And Ronnie Hextall was now a Quebec Nordique. At first, Hextall initially expressed unease about the possibility of moving his family to a French-speaking area. Through his agent, he admitted to being scared to death about the situation. Despite these assessments, Hextall regained some of his confidence from his early years at Philly. Although a strained thigh muscle would sideline him towards the end of the regular season, he played a key role in helping the Nordiques reach the playoffs for the first time since 1987. However, Quebec was eliminated in the first round by the Montreal Canadiens, losing the series in 6 games. Hextall received praise throughout the series despite going out in 6 games. Many people believed Hextall was back at the top of his game, and the old Ron Hextall we saw in Philly was about to return. However, he wouldn't return in Quebec. After just 1 season with the Nordiques, Hextall was traded to the New York Islanders. This move was necessitated by the Nordiques' need to protect only 1 goalie for the expansion draft that year, leading them to trade Hextall to Long Island instead of risking losing him. And despite being skeptical at first, the trade would come as a surprise to Hextall, who had settled in well in Quebec with his family. Don Maloney, the Islanders GM at the time, described this trade as too good to pass up, and it was praised by the New York Times as possibly the best in the league over the offseason, as many people expected the old Hextall to return. Sadly, that wouldn't really happen in Long Island. Hextall's tenure with the Islanders got off to a very rocky start, conceding 23 goals in 14 periods at the beginning of the 1994 season. This poor performance led to his replacement prior to the 3rd period of a game against the New Jersey Devils in mid-October, during which he was jeered by the crowd at home, a situation he had become accustomed to during his time with Philadelphia. Despite the fans' reaction, Hextall's teammates would stand by him, taking some responsibility themselves and expressing confidence in him. Steve Thomas was still calling Hextall one of the best goalies in the league, easily in the top 10 or 5 at the time, he said, while coach Al Arbour would defend Hextall, stating, "We're not playing well in front of the goaltender, and he can only be as good as the guys in front of him." The lack of experienced goaltenders in the Islanders system at one point led to Ron Hextall starting 20 games in a row. Despite these struggles, Hextall would regain some of his old form. In February, he achieved consecutive shutouts against the Ottawa Senators and Washington Capitals. He also recorded another shutout against the Flyers in his next home game and was subsequently named the NHL's Player of the Week. During the regular season with the Islanders, Hextall achieved a career-best 5 shutouts and goals against average of 3.08. His best since his rookie year. However, Hextall's time with the Islanders would have a disastrous finish. The Islanders made it into the playoffs but were swept by their rivals, the New York Rangers. Hextall played in 3 of the 4 games, conceding 16 goals for a brutal goals against average of 6.08, the worst of his NHL career by a considerable margin. Fans praised Hextall's play during long sequences of starts with New York, but ultimately, the New York Islanders and Ron Hextall just weren't a good match, and 5 months later, Hextall was traded back to the Philadelphia Flyers. Upon his return back to Philly in 1995, Hextall played in 31 games and recorded his lowest goals against average in a season to that point, recording a 2.89 goals against average. The Flyers reached the playoffs for the first time in 6 years. After defeating the Buffalo Sabres in the first round, the Flyers faced the New York Rangers in the second round. The Flyers would sweep the Rangers and go all the way to the conference finals against the New Jersey Devils, to whom they lost 4 games to 2-2. Hextall's stats in the playoffs were his best since his rookie year though. He recorded 10 wins with a goals against average of 2.81, showing he still had a lot of good hockey left in him. For the first time in 3 seasons, Hextall was not traded during the offseason, and he remained with the Flyers for the rest of his career, and it was clear he should have never been traded in the first place. He was just born to be a Flyer. During the 1996 regular season, Ron Hextall improved on his figures from the previous year, surpassing 30 wins for the first time since 1989. His goals against of 2.17 was both best in the NHL that year and the best of Ron Hextall's career. In the playoffs, the Flyers were unfortunately eliminated in 6 games by the Florida Panthers in the second round, but Hextall played in all 12 of the Flyers games and had a goals against average of 2.13, which was his lowest recorded in any postseason. Ronnie continued to find success over the next couple of seasons, surpassing 30 wins again twice, and adding another 9 shutouts to the 4 he had in 1996. Over the first 5 years of Ron Hextall's NHL career, he only had 1 shutout, while in his final 6 seasons, he achieved this feat on 19 occasions. The Flyers progressed to the 1997 Stanley Cup Finals, though Hextall only appeared in 8 playoff games, finishing 7 of them. Throughout the season and playoffs, the uncertainty in goal resulted in Hextall and Garth Snow swapping places regularly. Snow started 9 of the 10 games during the first 2 rounds of the playoffs, but then Hextall replaced him in Game 2 of the conference final, and remained the starting goaltender for the remainder of that series. A loss against the Detroit Red Wings in the first game of the Stanley Cup final resulted in Coach Murray switching back to Snow for the second game. Hextall returned for games 3 and 4, but the Flyers were ultimately swept by the Red Wings. In his final 2 playing seasons, both with the Flyers, Hextall made fewer and fewer appearances. He played in 46 games in 1998 and 23 in 1999. He maintained a sub-3 goals against average in each year, repeating this achievement in each of his final 5 seasons, having failed to do so in his previous 8. At the end of the 1999 season, Hextall was waived by the Flyers, and after going unclaimed in the expansion draft, he announced his retirement on September 6, 1999. Upon retirement from playing in 1999, Hextall swiftly transitioned to a role as a professional scout for the Philadelphia Flyers. Showing his hockey smarts, his career ascended as he rose to the position of Director of Professional Player Personnel within just 3 years. And he was considered instrumental to the Flyers' success throughout the early 2000s, which included 3 division titles and 2 Eastern Conference Finals appearances. His tenure with the Flyers ended in June 2006, when he would join the Los Angeles Kings as Vice President and Assistant General Manager. Additionally, Hextall took on the role of general manager for the LA Kings AHL affiliate, the Manchester Monarchs. And despite never getting to hoist the Stanley Cup as a player, in a crowning achievement, Hextall would win the Stanley Cup on June 11, 2012 as the Kings' assistant GM. He later returned to Philly on July 15, 2013, assuming the role of assistant general manager and director of hockey operations. Hextall's career path would take another significant turn on May 7, 2014, when he would be named the general manager of the Philadelphia Flyers, succeeding Paul Holmgren, who had been promoted to team president. However, Hextall's tenure as general manager was cut short when he was fired by the Flyers on November 26, 2018. And on February 9, 2021, Hextall returned to the hockey world and embarked on a new chapter as the general manager for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Despite his decorated background, his time in Pittsburgh quickly garnered controversy and criticism, as he would only last 2 years in Pittsburgh. On April 14, 2023, the Penguins announced the firing of Ron Hextall, ending his tenure with the team. Ron Hextall's legacy as a goaltender is indeed remarkable. His style of play, marked by exceptional puck handling abilities and aggressive playing style, truly revolutionized the position. While he had his moments of brilliance, he also experienced the occasional meltdown. His unique approach to the game made him one of a kind, and it's unlikely that we'll ever see another goalie quite like Ronnie Hextall. After his remarkable first year in the National Hockey League, where he achieved a rare feat of being named a first-team All-Star, winning the Conn Smythe and Vezina trophies, Ron Hextall faced the daunting task of sustaining such exceptional performance. Despite the challenges, Hextall's career spanned 608 games, during which he recorded 23 shutouts, posted a 2.98 goals against average, and a save percentage of .895. All accomplished in an era where scoring was at an all-time high. Notably, he even scored 2 goals himself. And even with his brutal postseason stint with the Islanders thrown in there, Hextall boasted impressive playoff statistics, with an impressive record of 47, 43, and 0 in 93 games. And he had a goals against average of 3.03 and an .897 save percentage. While his playing style was sometimes characterized as unpredictable, there's no doubt Ron Hextall ultimately left a lasting legacy as a remarkable goaltender with a career that captivated fans and critics alike. Thank you boys so much for watching if you've made it this far. If you've enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe for more, and I'll be sure to see you boys in the next one. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to also share it with a friend. I'll see you boys later.